Hello, Josh.
Hey,
So good to have you on the Ayurvedic Therapist show. I've been really looking forward to this moment where I could have you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm actually just gonna start my camera. Hang on one sec.
Sounds good.
Great. I'm doing really good. It's a beautiful day. I'm in Tucson and it's getting hot here finally, but we're trying to ease into the season change. So
Oh, amazing. Yeah, so what season are you going into? Summer?
it's getting to be summer. I mean, we
Yeah.
have kind of a quick spring lasts about that long here, and then it's just right into the heat and the dryness and all that pitta weather. So
Yeah, the pizza weather is coming.
it's here.
Amazing. Yeah, no, I'm in Costa Rica and we're heading into the winter. And
Okay.
but it's just the rain season, so it rains tropically a lot, which the nature needs it so much right now, so it's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so today we're talking about Ayurvedic or Vedic psychology, sorry, astrology, I should say. And you've helped me so much with my chart, in times in my life that I needed that extra kind of outlook on, should I go this way or that way, or if there was any confusion in my life, I've always come to you. And now we've started doing them for my clients because it really is giving us kind of an input in where people are, and where, just giving them direction where to go. So could you tell us a little bit about Vedic astrology and what it's all about?
Sure. So Vedic astrology, it's actually called Jyotish. Most people know the term Vedic astrology, so I use that term a lot too. But this is the science of light. So it's a sister science of a lot of the other Vedic sciences like yoga and Ayurveda, and I find it to be an extremely helpful tool to sort of give yourself a bit of a roadmap through life. Many people find this really helpful when they're, stuck at a junction or having trouble making a decision about something, whether it's like a career move or a love issue or money issues, all the things that happen in life that can kind of cause roadblocks. And Jyotish can shed some light on that, so to speak. So it can give us some guidance of what planetary effects may be, happening at a certain time. And even sometimes just knowing that much can be a big opening for people to kind of understand what's going on. And sometimes even if it doesn't necessarily fix your situation, just understanding why it's happening and hopefully if there's some sort of light at the end of that tunnel is a very, very helpful thing. So I like to think of Vedic astrology as an applied roadmap to life. And that's how I often try to with clients that I'm working with, and as an advisor, as somebody to consult with about the directionality that you're going in, and what would be maybe the best suited way to move forward in an unimpeded way. So that's how I like to frame it.
Wow, that sounds really interesting. And how did you get into all this yourself?
Yeah, I've been interested in the Vedic sciences since my early 20s. Ayurveda was my big inroad to this as well. And I originally went and started studying with Dr. Lad at his Ayurvedic Institute, which is in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and just was blown away by it right out of the gates, right from my first experience with Dr. Lad. I just had such profound shifts in who I was, and just felt this big pull to go that way. And then just by exposure to Ayurveda, you hear little bits and bobs about different yoga and then Vedic astrology and things like that, and it piqued my interest a little bit. And I had my chart done and thought it was kind of cool. And but it wasn't for a few more years really that it finally just kind of hit me that, oh, I want to study this and learn this, and I just dedicated myself full on to diving into this like vast ocean of another science and trying to understand it. So it's probably in my karmas, right, to study this science, and it's something that those karmas are still there, so I'm still studying.
Right. And that's such a great point. And it is really a really vast, rich field of, Ayurveda is like, you could go so many different directions with it. And there's a lot of studying to be done and really ancient wisdom and knowledge that has been handed down. So for you, when you said that it's probably in my karma and I knew I knew this was for me. How did you know that it
Well,
wasn't?
I think now that I understand my chart, I can also see my chart. But it's one of those things that I think any of us who are kind of on a spiritual path or, some sort of seeker in some way, there's just this deep feeling of truthfulness about something, and that's such a good feeling to follow. I found this very much in my own particular spiritual path with finding, teachers and gurus, and you come across these various gurus and you can have very good feelings about them and learn things from them and feel maybe drawn to them. But when you meet somebody who is like your subguru or your path that you're supposed to be following, there's just such a deep sense of connection there that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. It's almost, you can't question it, and I think it's important to know that feeling deep inside. And that's certainly what I've always felt with, Ayurveda, Vedic astrology, yoga, all these sciences has all had that same pull for me throughout the various ups and downs of life and interests and things going on. I've just always found myself back here. So here I am.
Yeah, there we go. So interesting. And so if someone is getting their chart done, can you tell us a little bit more about the details of how it's done and what they should be expecting to see? Just tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, sure. So, the most important thing is to get a birth date, birth time, and birthplace. In Jyotish, it's good for this to be very accurate, even down to the minute can be pretty important. But typically for most people, within a few minutes is okay. No birth time is probably exact, just because it's not common practice, when we're born, that the doctors are trying to get your Jyotish chart perfect so they get the exact time you're born, right? So it's good to get it as close as possible. If you get into being off by a few hours, that can really alter your chart, so you may get an inaccurate reading. Fortunately, you can also do rectified chart readings, and what this means is that you can take life events and that have happened to you, and we can sort of build various charts to see which charts fit those life events of the past to kind of determine the time of birth. So once you get your birth time set, I pull up your chart and then we take a look at it. There's a lot of factors we look at, and people always have very common questions. Most people are interested in their career and their love life. There's these kind of common themes that we all sort of have an interest in what's happening. But any question really under the sun, we can dig into and kind of look at why you may be where you're at in life, or what remedies you may bring into your life to help something that feels stagnant or stuck. So when you get a reading done, any facet of life, health things are usually a big one for people too. So we can look at Ayurveda and kind of integrating that with the Vedic astrology as well. But I like to try to give people kind of an overall life map of the structure of it. And then from there, we can do follow-up readings and we can, kind of microscopically pick apart little parts. But I think it's really helpful just to get a bit of an overview of the chart itself to see, what's going on for you. And I think it's always very interesting for me too. Every chart is very different. So they're like puzzles to try to figure out. And I have just as much fun, I think, as my clients do looking at the chart. So
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes we know things like in our intuition, but we still doubt it. And I think for me, it has been those times where I'm like, I just need to know that I'm right, or that I'm making the right decision, right? For example, for me, the challenges in my life have always been around relationships. So I've always known what I was doing with my career. I really found my dharma really early in my life. And I knew that I was supposed to be studying all the Vedic stuff in Ayurveda and yoga and all of that. And I always suffered in the relationship stuff. And I think it was one of just looking at my chart and seeing that it's all there.
right. Absolutely.
That's the weak spot.
For better or worse, here's what you got to deal with.
Yes. And just knowing that, I think, has helped me a lot to understand, like, not compare myself with other friends or women and be like, why is it working out for them, but it's not working out for me? And like romantic relationships, and just be like, you know what? That is my thing. I just have to really figure it out. And that's where most of my lessons are. So yeah, it's really interesting how it really opened up my perspective to life
I
as
love it.
well. Yeah.
I think it's
Um,
also always good to remember, I always call it the hand of cards we're dealt. And we all have some good cards and we get to play those good cards, and then we have our hard cards that we still got to play. And just kind of having some self-acceptance around that, we're all going to have these weak spots. Same thing when, you work with clients around Ayurveda, right? There's going to be, you have, kava gunyas, or these like kind of weak spots in the body that are going to be affected. So no matter how good you are, if you have the lungs as your weak spot, you're just going to always have to deal with lung stuff and phlegm congestion and, whatever it is, right? We all have something to sort of deal with. And it's also our biggest learning spot too. Like you said, it's the area we get to become the experts on. It's those
yeah.
spots.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Our Kavagunya, or the weak spot. Um, and so I think another thing that was really interesting for me personally when I did my chart was that for the longest time, I couldn't figure out what my doshas were, because I was like, oh my God, I'm so vata at times, and then I'm so pitta, and then I'm also a kapha. And when Dr. Ladd, and you mentioned Dr. Ladd, and he's like, oh my God, by the way, like check him out. His website is ayurveda.com. He's the pioneer of he brought Ayurveda into the West, basically. And there's this thing when you're in his presence that like people just say by being in his presence and him taking your pulse, you can heal. He's like that. He's like really connected. And he's one of those practitioners where he looks at your tongue and he tells you your whole life story. And for me, when he took my pulse, he was like, I was convinced that I was a vata because I had so many vata issues in my life. And he said, pitta 3 and kapha 2. And I was like, what? I'm not a pitta kapha. I don't have kapha in me. Like, I'm like really eager to go get stuff, and I'm very creative like the vata people. And so anyways, years later, the mystery was solved by doing my chart, because it showed on my chart that I was tridoshic. And I thought, wow, like here we are. That makes a lot of sense. So pitta was still number 1, and the other 2 were just like following pitta very closely. So it has also given me that input in, okay, the 3 doshas are always like kind of struggling to see who wins today, and I just wake up and I kind of look at who's present that day and what we need to do to balance it. So that was another part that was really helpful. But I know that you also have mentioned when you do charts and you do the charts for my clients, the specific herbs that you know that it would be good for them.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can look at different placements in the chart that will, and it's particularly related to the moon, but your moon placement especially will show sacred herbs for each person. And so what that means is that you can either grow these plants or keep them around you, and you can also take them as medicines. So I usually will have people, it depends on what it is. Some things are easier to take than others. But I say whenever you have a medicinal formula, just put a little bit of this in it. If it's Brahmi or something like that, right? You just put a little bit of the Brahmi always in your formula. It's always going to help you and serve you well. If you're able to grow it, even better. Keep that plant in your house, and it's a very auspicious thing to do for your health as well. So, just my interest in Ayurveda, I love looking at charts, with the medical astrology piece in there too, and it's usually fascinating to see people's health struggles and their sacred herbs will so commonly just line up so well with the things they need to work on. So that
Really?
always, even years later, it still blows my mind all the time to see, the herbs people need in relationship to their chart and how that plays out. So I love that piece too, for sure.
Yeah, amazing. And I know that you can also do the charts with your partner and just see, how things are between the 2 of you, what areas you have your strength, what areas you need to do more work in. So if people are open to that, that's really helpful too. I
Yeah, the
found it help.
synastry is big too, and people love that, of course, because everybody wants to compare charts with their either partner or potential partners. And I find it's a lot of fun to do. But yeah, I think it's a great lens to look at relationship through. And I'm a big proponent of, maybe I'm getting a little old, but I feel like there's always going to be something with somebody. And I think our culture is kind of pushing towards this like just run kind of mentality about relationships a lot, right? Or just kind of swing.
Mhm.
And I think it's actually pretty fascinating to dig into your current relationship and look at those challenges and see like, how can I better support my partner, or how can they better support me? And I think it provides a really nice framework for getting the most you can out of your relationship. And it's a lot of fun to do as well. So it's always pretty fascinating to see.
Yeah, no, that's really good to have that kind of input as well. Yeah, so we have talked about the chart, the different areas that we can look at. And I'm just wondering if there is anything that you want to add to, if someone is really stuck, maybe if someone is really stuck and they want to read their chart, would that be really helpful?
It can be really helpful, absolutely. And I think with a little bit of caveat that I try really hard to help people remember that their chart should empower their lives more than it should be like the thing that you constantly run to. Like you still need to take agency in your life. And I think that astrology should be a very empowering process for that to happen. So depending on the situation and the frequency, I think sometimes if you rely too heavily on your chart, you can get just as stuck as you would by using it as a tool for liberation. So large in part though, yes, if you're feeling stuck, and you've sat with it for a while and you've been stuck for a while, nothing seems to be very clear for you, I think it's a really good idea to consult an astrologer. And often I think there's some kind of synchronicity that happens in those cases too, where you may kind of forget about it for a minute, and then that person, maybe me, comes across your feed, or something that speaks to you that I said for whatever reason, right? Is like, oh gosh, I got to get this done. I think those are always very good omens that it's probably a good time to get your chart read. So yeah, that's the one caveat I'd add. I think it really you should still feel empowered in your life to make decisions. There's, our lives are made up of various types of karmas. There's fixed karmas, and there's movable karmas, and there's kind of movable karmas. And some of them you just can't change, right? Like we need to experience some karmas no matter what we do. But I think that Jyotish can give you some tools to maybe help. Dr. Swoboda says this a lot, and I love it. If you're going to have a big boulder fall on your head, and that's the karma that you need to have happen, maybe you can turn that boulder into just a couple pebbles, right? And I think that's one of the big steps of using Vedic astrology remedies and things like that to kind of help maybe lessen some of these harder karmas we do have to face. So
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so funny that you said that. I was just thinking of that as you were mentioning that, because I was just in a retreat with Dr. Svoboda, and that's what he was saying. And we were chanting, we were doing homas, chanting into the sacred fire. And so I'll tell you a story. So I came out of the retreat and I'm in Costa Rica. So I did another retreat where people came here and we did sacred fires, and we were chanting the whole week, chanting. And I was really feeling the power in that, I went for a walk after the retreat was done, and I was walking on the beach. I was like, oh my God, the sky is blue and the ocean is talking to me. And I was having such a great morning. And I've started becoming spiritually really kind of seeing people's auras and energies and things like that. So I was really connected. I did a meditation. I walked out of the beach, and there was this beautiful big tree, and the fruit just fell on my head. And I was like, oh, I wonder if this is an apple. Let me just try it. And I took a bite, and it was sweet. And I swear something just threw the apple, took the apple and threw it out of my hand. And I was like, that's kind of weird. I'm just going to walk away. So I walked away and started feeling really dizzy and really nauseous. And I thought, oh my God, I don't think I was supposed to eat that plant or that tree fruit or whatever. So long story short, anyways, I got home and my body completely rejected the plant, and I vomited everything out, which I'm so grateful for. And it really showed me, the power of the strength of our body, like all the Ayurvedic stuff I do. It's like my body knew that this is not supposed to be here, no matter how small it was. It completely rejected it. And as soon as I did that, I felt normal. But then I started reading on it, and it's apparently one of the most toxic trees in the world. And you die by coming in contact with this tree in any form or shape. So I ran to the pool and got my partner, and I was like, I think you need to take me to the emergency room. So we went to the emergency room, and I will never forget the doctor's face when I told him what I had done, and him being like, how did you walk yourself here? Like, how are you still alive? So they had to call, the poison line and all of that. And none of the nurses and the doctors could believe that I was still alive. Wow. And I just took the day and I rested. And the next morning I was completely fine. That day I was really tired, and then I was fine. But I really do believe that, number one, it was all the chanting that I had done that month, like intensely, and really being connected. And maybe this was, my karma of something. Maybe it was a big, massive rock that was supposed to kill me, and it just turned into a little thing that didn't kill me. And I do too believe that all the Ayurvedic stuff that I do to take care of my body, and just having the body's environment in a way that it knows the intelligence of like, no, this is not supposed to be here right away. Because if that poison had stayed went into my blood, it was done. But at the point of stomach, it was rejected. So that's just a little story for you. And it was in between two eclipses. So the one was done, and we were in between the two times. And I know that that's a huge thing in astrology as well.
Totally. Yeah, it's funny. That also makes me, before we started this, we were talking about Shiva, right? And that makes me think of the story of Shiva taking the poison and holding it in his throat. I think it's Nilakantu, right? The blue-throated one, but takes the poison and holds it in his throat, and then, releases it so that it doesn't get through the body. So, I mean, what an omen that must be. Yeah, your spiritual work and your chanting to purify those karmas, but not let them, take you away.
Yeah.
Amazing and scary at the same time.
Yes, it was scary. But also, I do want to mention that I have always been a very A+ type person, and I have to really try things on myself before I teach it, or I let my clients try it, or anything like that. And I always look for evidence. Like, that's just how my pitta is, like my pitta brain, and being a teacher and all that. I like to see I look for evidence, and yeah, there it is. There's something out there that, when we connect to, it's just the strength of our spirituality multiplies. And I have seen that so many times with my own eyes. Like, this is a story I told you.
Beautiful. Wow, what a story. You're okay. I'm glad you did not eat the apple, and that your intelligence took over in that case and didn't let you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be alive. And it's just like I've been given a gift of another life. So
right.
It's
profound.
Yes. Well, thank you for all the things that you taught us and enlightened us about Vedic astrology, Jyotish. And so maybe you could tell us, Josh, a little bit about how people could find you as well.
Yeah, sure. I'm all over the place, all the social stuff. But RupaVeda, RupaVeda.com is my website. So you can go there. I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on all the places. So you can probably find me that way.
Okay, awesome. And I'll put a link down here as well.
Okay, great, great, great. Thank you so much. It's funny, the dogs are now barking. You're saying it's
They're like talking about the omens.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
Nice
Have a good
chatting.
day.